Good afternoon, everybody. It's dead 12 on noon, and welcome to this event. I'm really pleased that you've all managed to join us. It's been quite an exciting time over the last 12 weeks, and I'll just give you a little bit of background. So 20 years ago to the day, in fact, I think it was 11 o'clock on the 1st of March 2001, the Prime Minister launched the original Skills for Life strategy. And the strategy was done in response to Moser, Lord Moser, who produced a report that really spelled out the dreadful state we were in as a nation, with 1 in 5 people with poor basic skills, reading age less than an 11-year-old, maths issues, and also we had many people with language issues as well. So that's the first strategy was launched. It was all embracing. It brought together lots of different government departments and lots of partners. And, I stayed with it for around 7 years as the head of the unit, and I moved on, as well as lots of other people, having embedded most of the processes and systems into the main EPI system. It was a very interesting time, and it served the nation well. And by 2011, having been embedded in the system, over 14 million had taken part in a literacy or maths class, and not just a class, that they'd actually improved their skills, and 8 million of those people were able to demonstrate that with a qualification. And it's gone on with around 8,000 participating every year until the last few years. And that's one of the things that made us, I suppose, come together, the original team and those who work in basic skills now, to produce a new strategy for 2021 to 2031. And with the help of the Further Education Trust for Leadership, we've been able to produce a document which should be live on their website now, that explains what was the good parts, what really worked, what really it helped the person with poor literacy or numeracy skills to actually go forward and join a class. So what we've done is produce a document that is not just a reflection of the past, although it was brilliant doing that piece of work. I did put a call out on social media, and I've never done this before. So we've actually produced a document, a bit like crowdfunding, which was very useful. And so the next stage now is to look to the future. And I think that's what today is mainly about. You can read about the past, you can read about people's reflections. Over 38 people are authors of this document, so you can read their stories of the past and work out what's new. But now we need to talk about the future, and today is really about committing. One of the things I've learned in the last couple of years, having been a civil servant for years and thinking government had to lead everything, was actually people can do things for themselves. We live in a country whereby we can take action, and most of us are in a position to actually help to improve the participation of English and Maths, and that's what the day is about. And it would be great if you could reflect as we speak it. And we've set up a sort of Twitter hashtag, which is hashtag SFL21 to 31, which is about you committing, about what you intend to do for the future. And you will hear later on about all the sector leaders, what they're going to intend to do. But before we get there, I'm really pleased that Robert Halfon is here with us, and he is the chair of the Education Select Committee, but also he's been an incredible advocate for skills and keeping it on the agenda. So Robert, we really welcome you today, and thank you for coming, and thank you for your report before Christmas from the Select Committee about lifelong learning and adult skills. So we're pleased that you're opening and saying why skills and basic skills are important to you and important to the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, and I hope you don't mind if I say, if those are sunflowers, they look lovely in the vase behind you.
Daffodils.
Daffodils. Oh, right. Well, they look like some lovely flowers. I'm really pleased to join you all today to support the launch of HOLEX's new strategy for adult English, Maths, ESOL and digital. I have huge admiration for your work, Sue. You're relentless on this. I think you are probably the biggest adult education champion that our country has, and I think we're very lucky to have you in terms of the work you do with people like me, with MPs, with ministers, with the government in general, and just constant activity. And we know that aside from the needs for our skills boost set out, participation in adult education is at its lowest level in 23 years, and funding fell by 45% since 2008-2009 and 2018-19. So the ideas and good practice that you have done on what works builds on the government recent Skill for Jobs white paper, and I think will be very helpful when thinking about what needs to happen next if we're to reverse the decline. And it builds the momentum around adult learning following the publication of our Education Select Committee's December report, which you kindly referred to, into adult skills and lifelong learning, and really appreciate Sue's input into that. And I want to take the opportunity you've offered me today to set out why this momentum is just so important. With the potential of adult education to provide a ladder of opportunity, prosperity and security for so many people, poor access to lifelong learning is one of the great social injustices, and often the least talked about in terms of education. On top of this, the lack of skills training is having a deeper impact on the ability of our economy to rise to the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution, an aging population, now the impact of COVID. With unemployment expected to rise to a peak of 2.6 million by the second quarter of 2021 as a result of coronavirus, it's more important than ever that everyone should be able to learn new skills and benefits from education throughout their lives. Education doesn't stop when you leave school or college or university. But despite the overwhelming benefits of adult education for the economy and the individuals, half of adults from the most disadvantaged background have received no training since leaving school. Despite well-intentioned reforms in recent years, the government's approach to adult education has too often suffered from initiativitis, lurching from one policy priority to the next. So using HOLEX's name, a holistic approach is required that provides consistent opportunities for adults to access learning and reskilling opportunities wherever they live and whatever their background. And this isn't just important for people's personal development, but for our country to fill the skill gaps in our ever-changing economy. So our committee's report sets out a four-pillar approach to harbour a revolution in adult skills and lifelong learning. Firstly, we want to see community learning centre in every town. And they don't necessarily have to be new buildings, as we can make use of existing community assets and organisations. So, for example, in my own constituency of Harlow, Essex County Council have relocated its adult community learning centre to the town library, and this puts adult education at the very heart of the community. Secondly, the Department for Education should introduce individual learning accounts funded through the National Skills Fund. These would devolve funding to learners and give them choice and agency over their learning and career development. It's true that individual learning accounts were tried 20 years ago and failed because of their susceptibility to fraud, but we now have better technology, digital security, and their time should come again. They could be funded through the 2.5 billion National Skills Fund already set aside by the government. Part-time higher education offers a second chance for adults who might have missed out on going to university the first time. But we know that over the 10 years up to 2018, the number of part-time undergraduates fell by more than 50%. So the third part of this strategy, the third pillar, should be to encourage more part-time learning. The DFE should bring in fee grants for part-time learners from the most disadvantaged backgrounds who study courses that meet the skills needs of the nation. And the department should also extend maintenance support to part-time distant learners. Finally, the government's own employer skills survey paints a very bleak picture whereby 39% of employers admit to training none of their staff over the last year. but enabling workers to gain new skills is a necessity. It's not something it's not icing on the cake, it is the cake itself. And it will be employers and the economy which will gain as much as the individuals. A skills tax credit focused on skills that our country needs, that where we have deficits in, will kickstart training for workers and would complement the government's scheme to give a few £1,000s to workers who are employing apprentices or younger people. The 4 pillars that we've set out in our committee would lay the foundation for a coherent long-term adult education strategy, and improving adult skills is vital to supporting the levelling up agenda. So I think I should end by taking the opportunity to thank all the teachers and support staff who've worked tirelessly throughout last year to find creative and innovative ways to carry on teaching English, maths and ESOL. It's now time to act to ensure an ambitious long-term strategy for adult skills and education, tackle social injustice, and give everyone that chance to climb the education ladder of opportunity, whatever their age. I wish you all well this morning, and I hope you have, or this afternoon even, and I hope you have a very enjoyable session. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. One question, Robert. Everybody's committing to something today, right? So as chair of the select committee, what's your commitment to this agenda of literacy, maths and language and digital? What can you do to support us?
My commitment as someone who's a campaigner is to continue to relentlessly campaign for these things, which I try to do all the time, not just by ensuring that our committee did a major report on it, which helps influence the public debate and influence government, which is very important. But we'll continue to campaign. We're not going away in our committee. We care about this deeply. And I want the adult skills agenda to be as high up as other parts of education, not the kind of forgotten part of it. And that's where I can best help all of you ensure that we get the policies that we'd like to see, whether it's some of the things that we've recommended, whether it is your work or others.
Brilliant, Robert. Thank you. I know you've got a busy day, so thank you for your time. Brilliant.
Thanks. Good luck and thank you very much. Bye.
We're now going to move on in the spirit of the original Skills for Life event and see and listen to one of our learners. And Alex Stevenson from Learning and Work is going to talk to a learner called Hannah Wilkins, and they are going to tell us collectively about Hannah's story. So welcome, Alex. Welcome, Hannah. Hannah, thank you for doing this. I hope you're. I think you're going to be fine, right? And we're all friends, and we're all really waiting for your story. So thank you. So over to you and Alex.
Thanks, Sue. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here from Learning and Work Institute on behalf of the Festival of Learning. We've been celebrating the fantastic achievements and the transformational impact of adult basic skills learning through the Festival of Learning for a number of years now, including throughout the Skills for Life strategy period as Adult Learners Week. And so I'm really pleased this afternoon that we are able to be joined by Hannah Wilkins. Now, Hannah won in 2020, last year, the Patrons Award in the Festival of Learning. So her story was personally selected by Learning and Work Institute's patron, Her Royal Highness Princess Anne, as the Patrons Award winner. And it's a really, really great story and includes Hannah's fantastic achievements around functional skills, English and maths. So Hannah, can you tell us a bit about your story and how you first got back into learning?
So I first obviously got back into learning through Wiltshire Family and Community Learning. They offered a sort of 5-week course about confidence in new directions. So from there, I kind of pushed on and asked to do functional skills in English and maths at level 2. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get any qualifications through secondary school. I left due to bullying at the age of 13. So to go back into learning as an adult was quite difficult. because you didn't know kind of where to go, obviously, especially when you're kind of a single parent as well, it kind of makes it harder. But obviously with their support, I was able to actually attend a functional skills course and complete level 2 in both English and maths.
And how, I know that you did quite a number of different courses before you did the functional skills. So what kinds of learning did you do to start off with, and how did that help you work towards the functional skills?
So I started off doing a confidence in new directions, obviously due to not being in school and not really having the confidence anymore, because of the bullying that I'd gone through. It helped me kind of build that confidence to kind of push forward for doing extra courses. Another course I did alongside the confidence in new directions was a keeping up with my children's English. So at the time I had 2 children in primary school, 1 in preschool, and 1 who was obviously with me and attended the crash with the setting. So obviously from there they kind of said, you know, these are the other courses that we do. So we've kind of, obviously, between myself and other learners, we've pushed for having the functional skills, but that was done over a 2-hour session a week for 20 weeks. So we started in 1 academic school year and finished in the December of that year. So we had a 6-week break before we'd actually continue to do our functional skills. So it was quite a long-term process, but it was something that was worthwhile in the end. Yeah, it was kind of getting into work that I wanted to do the functional skills.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and obviously that's quite a journey there, building up the confidence and getting to the point where you can do the functional skills. So tell us a bit about you know, what difference that's made to you getting those qualifications in English and maths, and what are you doing now as a result of your learning?
It's given me the confidence, obviously, especially with the pandemic, being able to help teach my children at home. Obviously, having 2 children on the spectrum, it's definitely helped trying to work ways of how to best support them. Obviously, doing other courses alongside the functional skills has given me that backbone to kind of go, right, I need to adapt this or I need to adapt that. But I know where I'm coming from. I can sit there and go, I know what a verb and a noun is now. I don't need to go and Google it, which is quite good. But it's given me, obviously, from doing them, I've been able to attend level 2 courses in distant learning from home, which is beneficial because obviously having young children, not being able to get to a college to be able to actually attend a college course, I've been able to do level 2 courses at home to be able to help me get into a position of work.
Great. So a real difference there that your learning's made for you and is continuing to have as well. If you were thinking, you know, back over your learning journey, what do you think has helped you the most in getting from where you were then back to where you are now? What things have made the difference for you?
It would be having, obviously, a setting that I can go to that is local to myself. Courses being run at short intervals so that it meant that I could still be a mum. I wasn't taken away from my child for a full week or a full day. I was doing a couple of hours here and then the following week it'd be the same again. It's also been known that there was a creche on site so that I could literally take my children to school, go to this course, drop my youngest into the creche. He was literally a room over from where I was. It kind of helped build that trust and know that what you're doing is right. You're not abandoning your child. You're not pushing them onto somebody else. You're actually bettering yourself for them, but knowing that they're close by if there was an emergency.
Yeah, so really that importance of local learning opportunities there and the childcare support as well. If there was somebody else in a similar situation to yourself who was maybe thinking about going back into adult education or into college to do their English and maths, what advice would you have for them now? What would you say to them?
I say definitely go for it because it does make a huge difference in yourself. It's made me a completely different person to who I was. I've got so much more confidence just knowing that I've got this education, having that's something, that stepping ladder to kind of work your way up through education. Just getting that first step, that first foot through the door is probably the hardest one. But the second you do it, you never look back and you will not regret doing so.
I think that's a great message for anyone who's thinking of going back to pick up on their English and maths. And is there anything else that you think more widely that you would like to see happening to encourage more people to get involved in learning and have the similar benefits that you've had for yourself? What else do we need to be doing as providers or as the government? What do you think would be really helpful to get more people involved in English and maths learning?
I think having obviously something local, so having somebody, obviously with myself with the family learning, they go from town to town, so they're not just set up in one area, they go to where they're needed. So having something like that local to everybody would be beneficial, but knowing that you've got childcare at the same time, so if you're a young parent, you're easily accessible to do so because you haven't got to worry about where's my child going to go, what am I going to do with them, have I got to get somebody to watch them. Having that crush available definitely helps. So it's having the access to it, not having to travel to another town or to a main town to be able to attend the college. I think that's definitely something that would have put me off if they turned around and said to me, oh yeah, you got to go to Chippenham or you've got to go to Salisbury or somewhere like that, that I'd be going, no, I can't do that. That's not accessible for me. So having something local is definitely helpful.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much, Hannah, for sharing your story with us this afternoon. I think it's been absolutely wonderful to hear what a difference learning has made to you. So I'm going to hand over back now to Sue for the next section.
Hannah and Alex, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Hannah, for doing that. I think it's a bit brave when you have to talk to 300 people that you probably don't, not seen before, but you did that really well. And it's fantastic to hear your achievements, and we just wish you well for the future. And Alex, as you're on the screen, I'd just like to say thank you to you as well. You've been the mainstay at Learning and Work for Maths and English over the last few years. So thank you for all your work. And I know you will go online now and put your commitment, and I'm sure your commitment will be to continue on working. So thank you both. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the next part of our event. And this is a really interesting one. Last week, I had the privilege, I think it was privilege, it was really enjoyable anyway, to talk to somebody I've not met before, which was Jay Blades, who is a television presenter, artist, furniture maker, craftsman, whatever badge you wish to give him. But he fronts the Repair Shop and 2 other television programs. However, he has been having he's had issues most of his life with reading. So we're now going to watch a short video. I apologize a bit for my interview skills. I think I'm sort of copying Lorraine, but you'll see. Thank you. Hi Jay, it's wonderful that you're with us today, and we need to start off by saying that everybody in the adult and community education world is such a fan of both Money for Nothing, The Repair Shop, and now we're all watching Jay and Dom's. So it's brilliant that you have come to join us, but it's actually not about the activities of the Repair Shop we want to talk about, really. Is that we've read a few articles recently and we've seen you on the television talking about reading and what it's like to be sort of not quite a non-reader as an adult, but somebody who doesn't enjoy it. So when did you first come aware that reading was a bit of an issue for you?
I think I became aware that reading was an issue at secondary school. I went through some trials and tribulations at secondary school, and it was kind of apparent that I was being naughty to get away from reading. So what they would ask you to do at school would basically say, all right, read that page, you read that page, and you go down the line, but I will always crack a joke and stuff. So I kind of knew then But it only really became apparent when I went to university and I got tested for being dyslexic. My ex-wife saw me struggling with reading the heavy text that I had to read. And she said, oh, we got to get you tested. And once I got tested, they said to me that I probably still got it. A reading ability of an 11-year-old is what they found out with me. So that's when I found out I was dyslexic.
So you're not on your own. You know, 1 in 5 people, adults in England, are around the same level or less than an 11-year-old. But it's often unseen. So how did you cover up? You know, did you have coping strategies? How did you cover up?
I think us dyslexic people, we're super smart. We are just the ones that do things in a completely different way. So there'll be a way of avoiding to fill in an application form. There'll be a way of avoiding filling in or reading anything. It would just be like, oh, my eyes hurt and I've got a bit of dust in there. What does that say? Or you just totally divert the question somewhere else. The coping strategies that you find in life, especially when you're unable to read, when everything is text heavy, whether it's an entry to a door or whether it's the direction or what you're supposed to do, it's all in text. It's almost as if everybody can read. So the people who can't read, you just have to kind of follow and make it up as you go along. So if you notice that there is a direction that everybody's going a different way, go that way with them, because obviously they're following a sign that tells them go through that door. So I just found watching people a lot easier than reading, because you just follow the instructions of what they're doing and you just follow suit, really. So that's how I did it. It's just coping strategies. I've had loads of different jobs. One, I don't know how I got all of them. I don't think I ever filled in an application form, but I've had quite a few jobs, and I might have got people to fill those in for me. Yeah, I've just coped. I've just coped.
And were you the type of person? What happened when you went to a restaurant? You know, how did you impress? You know, the love of your life. What did you do then?
I never impressed the love of my life. I'm probably one of the most boringest people you're ever likely to meet, because when I go to a restaurant, the guys at the repair shop will tell you this, and anybody who's been with me, I am probably one of the most unexciting eaters ever, because I'll go to a restaurant, I'll try something, and once I found that one dish, that's all I'm eating when I go there. They could have a special on the board, I can't read it. They'll have a menu, I don't know what it says, and then I'm like, no, this here. So there's a Chinese restaurant I go to, and I'm not going to plug their name. I've been going there since I was about 15, 16. Was introduced to it via Askew's Team Limited, the modeling agency I used to work for, taking pictures for them. And I've been eating the same meal since I was 15 years old. I go there and I never order anything else. I go to the repair shop, at the hotel that we stay in, I eat the same food every night. At home, I eat the same food all the time. I am very, very boring. So restaurants don't scare me. I just don't go to I don't go to new restaurants.
Thinking back to your early days, what would you say to teachers now? You know, what would you say? How do they spot people like yourself, and how do they help you more? What would be your tip for a teacher?
I think teachers, to tell them the truth, teachers have got it quite bad, because there's a lot of responsibility thrown onto teachers. And me personally, I like the responsibility to be spread out a bit further, so it goes into community. But for teachers, identifying someone who is dyslexic, it is just, and I think teachers already do this, whether you're in pastoral care or just in the classroom, you've got a kind of notion of why little Johnny or Tracy might be playing up. And it's like, because they're scared of those big words to reading and feeling embarrassed in front of their peers. So the acting out becomes a kind of defense mechanism. I don't know enough, I must say, of the development of how you identify and support dyslexic people. I know when I went to university, I got support, but in the 70s and the 80s, when I was growing up, it was kind of like a new thing. And when you look at the kind of characteristics of a dyslexic person who doesn't like authority, likes to do things a different way, if you give them a particular way of doing something, they'll think and come up with a different solution. And sometimes that can seem quite challenging to institutions or anything like that. So I would say to teachers, you're doing a great job, first and foremost, and also just be a little bit more understanding as into how everybody is different and everybody learns in a different way, and how can that person be best supported with the way that they learn. That's the only thing. But I think teachers are doing a great job. I've worked in a number of schools in pastoral care and externally, and I must say that if I had my hat on, and apologies for anybody listening to this, I haven't got a shirt on, I've got no hat. I'm just in my workshop doing what I'm doing. But if I did have a hat on, I would take it off and salute all of the teachers watching this, because you guys do a brilliant job. And sometimes society puts too much on you and too much responsibility. So yeah, sorry about that.
Jay, that's brilliant. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Jay. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Cool.
Hi everyone, we're back in the sort of real live world. I hope you found that interesting. Jay really brings to life why we're all in this job of trying to improve adult literacy and numeracy. Although he's coped well and gone on to be very successful, the same issues are still there. If you've got poor basic skills, you're more likely to end up in prison. Not to say that everybody would, but you're more likely. Prisoners have got often poor skills more than the rest of the population. You're more likely to be on benefit. You're more likely to not own your own house. You're more likely to have children who can't read. And you're more likely to be in very low paid and a low scale job. And that's really why we're here today. The problem and challenge back in 2000 was that there were 7 million people with literacy levels below level 1. There was also a learner motivation issue, and at that time we weren't sure about the quality. However, we've addressed some of that, but not all of it. But we've ended up, 20 years later, because the population has grown, and we've got now 9 million with the last survey with poor literacy and poor numeracy skills, and many who have a language problem. And on top of that, we're moving into this very digital artificial intelligence world, and we've got 17.3 million needed digital skills at work. And it was all right, all the way till about 2014, around 800,000 were still participating. And then around 16, 17, it dropped to about 700,000. And last year, even before COVID, the drop was 440,000 doing literacy. So over a period of time, we lost 400,000 learners. And we could say it was down to funding, but it wasn't all funding, because although the austerity measures took away adult funding, it did leave a substantial amount for literacy and numeracy, but it was left to providers to choose whether they wanted to do it or not. And through this piece of work, it's been interesting to see what are the barriers to colleges, adult education centres, the independent providers doing more for literacy and numeracy. And it looks to me that there was a whole range of things, and through the consultation we could see what people were telling us was, well, funding, the actual value of the unit of funding given to somebody to do functional skills or literacy level 1 is just not enough. So I wonder how, as providers, you sometimes manage it, and I'm hoping that's going to be corrected. We're seeing in London a change where they put in 10% extra. And we'd also, when we consulted with you, there was things like that were in place, like the standards, like the curriculum, like materials, but they were all dated and they needed to be revised. And then we had things in the original strategy about setting targets. And when we asked the question for the consultation in one of the polls we did, we actually asked, do you think government should set new targets? And surprisingly, 61% of you said, yes, there should be targets. And we also asked through that particular consultation, should we do things like bring back, and this is going to tax some of you, but you can Google it, gremlins. If you've never seen a basic skills gremlin, look at them on YouTube now. And what was interesting, 75% of you said, no, don't bring the gremlins, but do bring something that advertises to prospective learners that if they've got a literacy or numeracy issue, that there is free provision for them. Because again, when we're looking at what learners tell us, like Hannah, she probably didn't know it was free to start, And we're getting that feedback from adult learners quite a lot, that they don't know what their entitlements are. So more communication was incredibly, I think, going forward, really important. We also learned what worked, have an endorsement from the top, and in a way we've got that, because in the new FE white paper, it does talk about English and maths and digital and language for adults, which is brilliant. We did see from the past that a whole government approach was really important. In other words, DFE working with DWP or worked with the Home Office. So there was a coordinated approach to the way that we dealt with certain client groups. And also targets helped. It also helps to mainstream something, so the funding process is not separate. Like we're now going through a time where the new National Skills Fund is slightly separate, traineeships is slightly separate, but no, basic skills is really well embedded. But by doing that, it's often forgotten that it's there by politicians, so maybe we need to work on that. We also looked at the standards, and they need to be refreshed, but there is something also still about the functional skills qualification and whether it suits adults and whether it's actually tailored enough for their needs. And like I said, there's something more about communications, but it's also about working with initiatives that have the same goal. And that's what Skills for Life was really successful about, was tapping into other things, whether it be, vocational work or vocational programs, whether it's apprenticeships, or whether it's things like family literacy and one of the big underpinning programs was ESOL. And we wanted to talk today about those two programs specifically, because a bit of me thinks that if we had expanded family learning when we were in COVID and lockdown, it might have helped people. So I'm really pleased to invite Susanna Chambers now to join me, who is a fantastic family learning advocate. So Susanna, nice to see you on the screen. So Susanna, I'm going to pass over to you for 5 minutes, or 4 actually, to keep the timing right, to talk about why you think family learning is so important.
Thank you so much, Sue. So just to say, there has never been a more crucial time for family learning to be a universal entitlement for families as part of our society. During the pandemic, millions of families, as you've alluded to, Sue, have struggled making that transition into supporting their children's learning in a home environment. And frankly, it doesn't need to be this way. With a model like family learning, that transition, that fostering of the home learning environment can be realised both during the pandemic, but also sustained beyond. So there is evidence clearly there for why family learning is a low cost, high quality, high impact learning model that has got tandem benefits because of the intergenerational approach. For the cost of one intervention, you're getting tandem benefits for parents and carers and children. And this evidence base has been around for the last 20 years or so. So the definition of family learning is any learning activity, whether a learning outcomes for children and adults, whether they're parents or carers. Now, it was brilliant hearing Hannah's story and her actually referencing how family learning had been such an important part of her learning journey as a stepping stone to functional skills. Family learning is brilliantly placed for all those millions of adults, as mentioned, that don't have a level 2 qualification in English and maths, and who, contrary to popular narrative, will not be served on that first stepping stone through a college environment, or indeed through apprenticeships. They have their place, but they do not serve the role of family learning provision at its best. So last summer, there were 7 pages of evidence published in the inquiry into the impact of COVID-19 on education and children's services, which clearly flagged the unique positioning and contribution of family learning in terms of supporting health and wellbeing outcomes, employability for parents, which of course is incredibly important, especially in the current economic context with the pandemic, and crucially also to heal parents' negative experiences sometimes of their own school experience, which then the children hear constantly being modelled by the parents. So to break away from that, some of the research indicates a 15% increase in the attainment of pupils that take part in family learning classes. This makes it an absolute crucial cornerstone of an approach to closing the gap in educational attainment for pupil premium students, for looked after children. And my call today is fivefold. I have 5 little calls to action on the premise that we recognise parents and carers as their children's first and most important educators to build on the great practice and efforts of school. So, number 1, I'd like to ask the Department for Education to actively reach out to BEIS to engage, to get leverage from existing family learning funding, and actually insist that schools engage with adult learning services to make that provision available to all existing eligible families. Number 2, I would like the government to make additional funding available to make family learning a universal entitlement and not tied and constrained by postcode. Number 3, I would like the government to engage with teacher training providers to ensure that there is a hugely greater emphasis on parental engagement as part of a teacher's role. Number 4, I'd like us to prioritise dialogue over devices. Devices and tech are crucial and they play a key role, but it is not the panacea. It does not solve the kind of problem that we've been facing as a nation with the school closures. And crucially, as part of dialogue over devices, a 3-way conversation driven by schools where parents and carers are actively engaged and invited to co-create the curriculum and the learning journey that their children are on, rather than just relying on things like parents' evenings. And finally, number 5, resilience over resources. I commend the National Oak Academy and indeed the BBC for their extra programming and resources, but we all know you can have a mountain of resources, but if a home learning environment is not ready to engage with learning from those earliest years in a child's life or to be recovered later through adult education, it's an uphill battle and success will always be limited. So to summarise, I'd like to say this truly is an opportunity on collaboration not to be missed. Family learning is an essential, it is not an optional luxury. So I look forward to seeing family learning at the heart of future government policy in education to empower parents and carers as active change agents in their own children's learning and discovering their own learning journey as lifelong learners on the way. So I commit to continuing to campaign day in, day out, and to collaborate with anybody who is prepared to rise to this challenge. Thank you.
Susanna, that's brilliant, as I knew it would be. And it's great that you've kept this on the agenda with the good work that I know that the Campaign for Learning has done as well. And you know, we have so many learners that we do need to touch. So all providers, colleges, learning providers, small centres and family learning in schools is all part of this agenda going forward. Thank you, and Susanna. We're going to move on now to Rachel Honor from NatTella. Rachel, it's brilliant that you're with us, and you know, one of the things that we've been trying to do for the last few years is just try and get an ESOL strategy. They keep on promising us. We got really close to it last year. We nearly saw a draft, and then it was snatched by the election, and then COVID. So like Susanna, you know, you've had to lobby a lot in this world to keep ESOL on the agenda. And to be fair, you know, Skills for Life originally, and if you look, you know, didn't actually do a lot for ESOL right up front. It did a lot behind the scenes, but it wasn't like a key platform of the policy. But now we've got to change that, and our new document, which is out, you know, puts ESOL right in the centre of it. You know, as part of the 4 activities we really need to concentrate on. So over to you, Rachel.
Okay, thank you very much, Sue. Yeah, thank you to Sue and HOLEX for inviting us here to speak about the ESOL strategy at this new launch. Where have those 20 years gone? I don't know. Goodness me, blink and you miss them. Personally, I'm quite glad that the gremlins have gone. I found them a tiny bit scary. Better imagery maybe next time. Anyway, we've seen repeated calls, as you say, for a national ESOL strategy for England, which quite frankly lags behind Wales and Scotland, who've had their strategies in place for several years now. So Wales 2014, Scotland 2015. In fact, NatTella has actually been promoting a common strategy around the ESOL provision now for more than four decades. So it's not something that is new to us and that we will continue to promote. So what can an ESOL strategy do then? So an ESOL strategy gives purpose and direction. it cultivates a very structured approach to developing a curriculum that identifies appropriate regional and national needs. It identifies teaching and training needs that inform and improve a learner's experience. A strategy can give practitioners and their learners shared values that support integration, that reduces inequalities and develops skills and employment to the benefit of the economy. So you're right, Sue, about the 2001 Skills for Life strategy. We did benefit tremendously behind the scenes from the Skills for Life strategy in 2001. We had a new curriculum, materials, research, and some fantastic professional development pathways at the time. Over the years, however, since that strategy, ESOL has seen significant changes, and unlike English and Maths, free classes for all in ESOL were removed back in 2007. In addition, funding has decreased, and it's often short term, but the demand for ESOL certainly hasn't decreased. And we're seeing that waiting lists are very common in major colleges and other providers. So, as I said, funding is often short term. This makes long term planning in ESOL almost impossible. Cost mainly, and also sort of qualification status against functional skills, has often resulted in ESOL learners doing functional skills qualifications, which, despite the reforms, are still largely unsuitable for most ESOL learners. And teacher training, since specialist teaching qualifications, especially the additional diploma in teaching literacy in ESOL, were deregulated, there's been a real shortage of qualified ESOL teachers, and that was showed in the DfE consultations in 2019. There's simply just not enough subject-specific courses or CPD in the sector at the moment. Those with ESOL needs are often at a social disadvantage. And after the KC report back in 2016, which clearly demonstrated that ESOL was necessary for integration, the government pledged to publish an ESOL strategy. However, it's not there. It hasn't happened, and now we face some really serious threats, in particular to ESOL. The latest DfE level 2 and below consultation, which is looking at merging entry levels into one, looking at changing or scrapping curriculums, and other changes at levels 1 and 2 are concerning to the ESOL sector. ESOL really does need stability. It's not really subject to political decisions of successive governments. And moreover, ESOL learners really deserve it. I'd like to end really with a couple of reminders. As I said, this is not a new thing that we've been talking about. We've been talking about it for a few years. And if you think back to 2014, the think tank Demo did a comprehensive report on the state that said that the stated strategy would, and I quote, help to unlock migrant capabilities, save costs to public services in the long term, and promote a more integrated and socially cohesive society. There have been so many endorsements over the last 5 years from so many organisations, including yourselves at HOLEX, and we were promised a strategy, but we're still waiting. And ultimately, it's just political will that can really take this forward. Secondly, and we heard earlier our colleague Alex talking, and he said when we did a review in 2017 of where we'd got with the strategy, I'd like to leave with his quote, which I think is one of the best I've read around this. And he said, don't think what the government can do for ESOL, but what can ESOL do for the government in terms of employment, health and integration. Thank you so much. I'm going to share, or hopefully Charlie's going to share a link with you to everybody so you can click on to the NATECLA page and read the ESOL strategy in some more detail. But my pledge going forward is that I'm not going to let this one lie, and I'm going to keep talking and promoting the ESOL strategy until we get it signed off. So there we go.
Well done, Rachel, and thanks for the commitment. On the bright side, though, the FE white paper did have a section on language. It was mainly around migrants, but at least it was there and at least it was recognised. So that was a really good step forward in my book. So, Rachel, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're now going to go on to the next section, and I don't know on earth I'm going to manage my time here because although people keep on referring this to the like a holics activity, it wasn't actually. It was a combined activity of people who were in the original Skills for Life unit, but also sector leaders and organisations like ALP, AOC, ETF, as a collective coming together. And one of the things I think we all came to the same conclusion about the same time is, yes, we can produce a document, and it's great to reflect from the past. And I think, you know, Mark was one of those that was with Skills for Life in its early days, and that reflection was really enjoyable. And the document is, I think, a good read because it's written from the prism of people doing it. You know, so it reads different than most policy documents. However, it has come out with a long action list, but not all, as I said earlier, that action for government is for all of us. And what's good about this session, this is now about the future. What are these people going to do? What are these individuals going to do? And what are their organisations going to do over the next 10 years? And to start us off and to raise the bar, we've got Mark Daw now from the Skills Network. I'm not going to go through Mark's job history, as most people know. I'm really grateful he's wearing the daffodil. We've had the rugby conversation. You know, I'm really pleased Wales won. I know we hadn't bribed the French referee, but we've done that, right? So Mark, over to you.
Okay, afternoon everyone. And the power of Pemba, she's the only person I'd wear a daffodil for. And actually the success of the strategy was strong leadership, and that came from Susan. Even today on Radio 4, you heard a story around how subtitles when children watch TV would help them learn to read. When we were in the Skills for Life, every week we were putting out ideas like that and stimulating the population in ways how to learn, simple ways. And the whole strategy had an amazing impact, and it had a big impact on me as well in terms of understanding the issues and also the passion for serving those people that need the help the most. Alison Wolfe said that literacy and numeracy are the most important vocational skills, and I couldn't agree more with that. If you don't have that, where do you start? So very briefly, in the report, there are a few quotes from me, and one of them was why the strategy works. And part of that's because we didn't take no for an answer, whether it was from the Department of Civil Servants, whether it was from the Learning and Skills Council, as was then, or the colleges themselves. And in my role, one of the things was to get people delivering. And we did that with three main things around incentivising. Susan's already mentioned the funding and the special weighting. We had to persuade the LSC. And even now we've got apprentices on half the funding rate of what is a low funding rate already. So things need to change there. We had to educate the providers and the colleges about what the funding was, how to recruit learners, explain the programme, the methods of delivery, the curriculum, the assessment, the teacher training, a whole package. And that actually required us to bring in the senior leaders. We insisted if we were going to go out and support colleges and providers, they had to have the principal or the CEO and their senior leaders. In the report, looking now, whether it's 9 million, 10 million, 17 million, there is a big need. And I think it's a real shame that we've lost the focus that we had 20 years ago. And we've still got the stock of adults that haven't got that literacy and numeracy understanding. And every year there's the flow of young people coming in who still haven't got their English and maths. And what is a real shame is that the original strategy really was allowed to wither on the vine. So for me, looking forward, it's great to hear Rob Halfon talk about skills accounts and individual learning accounts. I believe putting the power of purchase into the individual helps enormously. We heard from Hannah talking about how she was learning level 2 at home and the flexibility and the need to be able to look after her family while learning. So I'm in a very privileged position at the Skills Network. We're not constrained by buildings and location. We develop amazing resources with partners and we support those individuals directly. And it is incredible learning at a fraction of the cost and actually frees up tutors to provide the support around the core learning. So one of the commitments I have is to obviously keep driving that. We're producing functional skills and digital resources, but to keep driving that. Another for me is to join this group and drive for a sustainable strategy again. And I believe the Skills for Life strategy shouldn't be a few lines within the FE white paper. We have written, when you read the report, we have written a new white paper, a new report, and that should be standing alongside the FE white paper, not as a few tiny entries in there. So for me, my commitment is when this new white paper comes out that commits to Skills for Life, I want to be at the heart of it, promoting it and driving it forward.
Brilliant, Mark. Thanks for that. Yeah, really interesting comment. I'm satisfied with 3 lines these days. FE white paper, 3 lines on basic skills, and I'm sort of bought out. You're right, to press, it needs to be bigger and it needs to be matched with the same sort of media attention. So that now brings us to Helen George. Now, Helen was part of the original team, and Helen's in a really interesting position now because she's part of the combined authority. She leads for skills and Sheffield and Yorkshire in a way. And Helen, you've always been a big advocate for basic skills in all your different roles. And now in your new role, with over 50% of the funding going through combined authorities, we are really looking to you. So what's your commitment?
Okay, so I'll come on to those in a moment. So I'm really, really pleased to be able to contribute here. The South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authorities just published its 20-year strategic economic plan. Huge ambition, 7.6 billion of growth, 33,000 more people in higher value jobs over the next 20 years. But the challenge is to make sure that that growth is inclusive and to make sure that residents are able to benefit from it through jobs, apprenticeships, and through better wages. And in South Yorkshire, that's a real challenge because we fall behind in terms of basic skills. We've got higher numbers of people with no qualifications, lower numbers of people leaving school with 5 good GCSEs. And we've got lots of people who have not engaged in learning in a very, very long time. And that, of course, as we look at people retraining post-COVID, post the pandemic, and as Susanna was talking about, in terms of the number of families, the thousands of families who are out there who've been trying to support their children with homework, that's been a real challenge for South Yorkshire. We're really lucky across South Yorkshire to have a good, strong adult learning offer and a community learning offer through our local authority providers chiefly, and also through our colleges. But we clearly need to do a lot more. So I've got 4 little commitments, if I'm allowed to, Susan. The first is through our devolved adult education budget. We are making sure that we prioritise literacy, language, numeracy and digital skills, and that's absolutely part of what the Education, Skills and Employability Board has asked us to do. So that's an ongoing commitment. The second one is I'm really keen to get my hands on this publication and to take it to our providers, take it to our colleges and our independent training providers, and work out what we can do better across South Yorkshire to improve the achievement of more literacy, language and numeracy and digital qualifications. The third one is I'm going to talk to my colleagues in other mayoral combined authorities and really raise this agenda with them, so that this is something that we share. And the last one is a personal commitment to champion adult learning amongst our wider skills offer and make sure that we retain a home for adult learning across South Yorkshire.
Helen, that's brilliant, thank you. And I'd be interested to get the feedback when you've talked to your other combined authorities. Brilliant for that. And it's lovely to see you as well, wearing yellow for St David's Day. Well done, thank you. We're now going to move on to David Russell at ETF, and ETF has held all the original materials on their Excellence website, and we're really grateful for that. So David, thank you for joining us today, and you're starting to hear the type of commitments coming forward. So can you tell us what you're going to do personally and what ETF is going to do?
Yeah, thank you, Sue, and happy St David's Day. Yeah, it's great to hear the commitments. I agree with so much of the commentary as well from fellow panelists. But look, I expect most people watching today are teachers, and teaching basic skills is a really a specific and skilled thing and needs support. And the ETF has a major role to play in supporting the teaching of basic skills. It's always been a big part of what we do since we started 7 years ago, and it will continue to be. So, I mean, for example, we've supported the sector to respond to, you know, a massive increase in 16 to 19s who resit GCSE Maths and English, one of the biggest challenges for the sector, I think, in recent years. But also, it's not just quantity, it's the revised GCSEs, the revised functional skills qualifications have needed a lot of support. I agree, it's good to see the commitment in the white paper, and I hope that more will come of that. But in terms of ETF and the role we have to play, basic skills are key to student success, whatever their training and studying, as well as to their employment prospects. And we've got 6 parts to our commitment I want to just share with you very briefly today. So firstly, simply to provide teacher training and resources that reflect the recent changes in our sector, including the higher level requirements for English and Maths, and now digital, which is coming up the agenda, you know, and not before time, and of course ESOL as well, and not forgetting the T levels, you know, Maths and English and digital, really important for accessibility and access and fairness to T levels. Secondly, to make sure that teacher training is informed by research evidence. I'm personally committed to this, I'm very passionate about it. I mean, for example, a new course on GCSE English writing study, or the Centres for Excellence in Maths, mastery methods that we've been looking at with the DFE. So that's our second one, about research base. Thirdly, to support networking opportunities for teachers and managers. Joint practice development is the most effective way of improving professionalism and improving professional practice. It's a big part of what the ETF does, and it's been very important to how we've approached basic skills and CPD. Fourthly, to address the social digital divide, as already been referenced. For example, Essential Digital Skills Professional Development Programme, which we're running now, aimed at teachers who are delivering the new entitlement to adults with no or low digital skills, doesn't get as much attention and airtime as it should. Really, really important things going on in the sector. Fifth, to develop the skills of teachers on vocational programs. So again, this has been touched on, but you know, childcare, plumbing, automotive. You know, Mark referenced that wonderful line about from Alison Wolfe about Maths and English being vocational skills, and of course they are, and there's so much more as well. And it must never be seen in a vacuum. It's always part of a broader education. And last but by no means least, offering training to ESOL teachers to promote progression from beginner level into training and jobs. And you know, I'll be honest, ETF hasn't been able to do as much as we would like on ESOL. It's always been a really important part. Sue, you've helped us in the past, kind of access support from other government departments, as well as being supportive of ETF in general. I think there's so much more we could do on ESOL. It's still underpowered and under-celebrated for the huge importance it has. And that's where I want to end with kind of my personal commitment. The whole agenda is very important to ETF, but the ESOL agenda is particularly important to me, and that's where I'm going to keep pushing.
Cheers, David, that's brilliant, and thanks to all your staff, and they've been really supportive and helped the drafting of this document, so I'm really grateful for that. Okay, we're now going to move on, and if I could say to the next set of people, really keep to your 3, maybe even not just 4 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, so that we finish at 1/2 on time. So Jane Hickey from ALP.
Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Okay, I have to start with apologising for not wearing a daffodil, given that I live in Wales. I'll go and find one in a minute. Okay, so I'll be really quick because you've asked us to be. Can I just start by saying, if we weren't in an online capacity world at the moment, or capacity, that Hannah's story would have had us all out of our chairs clapping, actually, because it's what breathes life into the things that we talk about, and just hearing from somebody what the actual experience is, it's just fantastic. So just moving on from that, so I think most people would know that ALP has always been a very strong supporter of the Skills for Life strategy, and we also lobbied for functional skills to be included in apprenticeship standards after the Richards reforms in 2012, and we lobbied for basic digital skills to be part of the adult education offer. I think with the research showing us what's happening around, you know, the numbers of adults without working age adults who don't have basic reading and writing being around 5 million, and then the numbers of people, the jobs which are at risk through automation being about 1.5 million. And I was really interested to read your article, Sue, in TES, where you talked about that need for road mapping that we don't have and the need to just press on with that. So the things which ALP will be pushing for in particular, there are 4, I'll be quick. First is individual skills accounts. Really, really happy to hear Rob Halfon talk about that as well. We strongly support bringing back individual learning accounts which are properly regulated and which with an approved list of qualifications. They just, you know, better suit different styles of learning, full-time or part-time, and basically people's personal circumstances compared to the kind of clunky funding system that we've got now. The second would be functional skills, which you would expect me to say. The paper looks at a review of GCSEs, and I've been in meetings with the Minister when she's talked about employers preferring GCSEs to functional skills. Actually, that's not really the experience that ALP has. Employers understand them. They realise that they're as good, if not better, than GCSEs sometimes. So ALP will continue to push for it, make sure there's a better understanding of that across the learning community. The third is the provision of stepping stones to full qualifications. Qualifications are important, but the provision of those stepping stones to allow for people to be able to achieve qualifications are also equally important, so we will push for that. And the fourth would be what we have seen in the past, obviously over the past while, is the degree to which people have reverted to online. So a blended way of learning, actually promoting that, and the way in which that can, you know, Hannah talked about it, the way it can advance opportunities. So that would be our fourth. So those are our 4 commitments.
Jane, that's brilliant, and thank you again for your advocacy in this area. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we move now on to Ken Sargent. Ken was a part of the original Skills for Life team, but in a way was from the outside. He worked for Deloitte as a consulting partner, but he was also there as the employer champion and got lots of employers on board. So Ken.
Thank you very much, Sue. It's a pleasure to be here today. I don't know who the old bloke was looking at me in the mirror this morning, but it must be me after 20 years of being involved in education and skills. And as for the Gremlins, I'm just going to go right out there. I think they were fantastic. And the fact that we're still talking about them today means they did their job really, really well, because they're still very provocative over where we need to get the message from. I think in terms of employer engagement and dealing with employers, which is the bit I'm quite passionate about, I read the white paper and sort of said, well, this isn't particularly new. When we go back to Curriculum 2000, we engaged, you know, the employer network, the Skills for Life strategy engaged employers, Sandy Leach's work all around level 2 engaged employers, and the work we did at Deloitte around employability skills, where we put our own program together that influenced 20,000 young people's ability to become more employable, not just qualified. And that research with our clients showed that soft skills, power skills, whatever you call them, are critical. But maths, English, ESOL and digital were the building blocks for those. I think in terms of where we go next, the level 3 entitlement is great, but fundamentally, unless we've got those stepping stones to actually succeed and get learners to build that learning journey, they're just not going to succeed at all. So therefore, my plea is that we do build those stepping stones in. I'm appreciative of time, so I'll come straight to my 4 bits of over what next. I think the government needs really to step up. The figures you quoted earlier, and we've been bandying around 9 million. Can we just reflect what that number is? 9 million. I'm sure we'd all like that in our bank account in cash, but 9 million people needing maths and English skills, 17.3 million requiring digital skills. I'm sorry, those numbers are staggering, absolutely staggering, and we need to do something urgently to address it. And I welcome Robert's comment this morning. But my pledge is, I don't think government is being ambitious. I don't think we're being revolutionary. I think we're tinkering at the margins again. And we need to be bold to address 9 million and 17.3 million individuals who I believe need to be given every chance of success in their lives. And we're neglecting them unless we do something bold. I think my pledge is, like Mark, this strategy doesn't need to be 2 lines. It needs to be a strategy in its own right, which government adopts in full and cracks on and get it implemented. To address that, and I'll do it again, 9 million and 17.3 million. I think we do need something which brings employers together. Currently, employers over the last 20 years have found the education system both complex and inaccessible. Now, I know a lot of the system is doing a good job trying to address that, but employers are still saying it's complex and it's not accessible to them. So we need to do more to build those bridges. We need something like a further education or further employment strategy skills unit that is about predicting the future and anticipating the future rather than reacting to today, which is what I feel government does a lot of the time. And I think we need a blank piece of paper exercise to do that. What do we want from the future to look like rather than tinkering with today? And my personal pledge, as it has been for the last 20 years, is I'll keep banging my drum as loud as possible with employers inside and outside the organisations I work with to try and make a difference, because it made a significant difference to my life as an adult learner. Thanks, Sue.
Brilliant, Ken, and thanks for that. We had a bit of technology issue there, so that's why Ken didn't show his face. It wasn't that he was actually looking like a gremlin. All right, let's just get that straight. We're now going to move on to Lisa Capper, who's the Chief Exec of NACRO. And Lisa was one of the original Skills for Life champions and worked for the unit. And we hope, Lisa, that you've got a strong connection, or you just need to move, right? You look like you're on sort of stopped at this moment, so I hope you're going to be able to speak in a second. So Lisa, over to you for your commitments before the line drops out again.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Capper and I work for NACRO, the social justice charity, as well as Susan said, being part of the original Skills for Life team, which was a hugely exciting part of my career. At NACRO, we work in housing services, justice services, and we're also an independent training provider delivering to young people and adults. And we work in some of the most deprived areas in England and Wales, and also with those who are entering within or leaving the criminal justice system. I think we can say, Susan, that we work with most of those 9 million, all of those priority groups. And it's really clear through our work that the lack of basic skills and digital skills, and sometimes ESOL, is a significant barrier to individuals getting on in work or in further education or in improving their lives and those of their families. And furthermore, we know that the digital divide, which is much talked about every week on television, is very, very real. And we're not just talking about within institutions, but very much within households and very much linked to poverty. So there's some real issues here about accessing some of the support that we're talking about bringing into play. We also know that adult learners that face multiple or complex barriers to learning do better when they've got more wraparound support, a more holistic approach, or perhaps a learning mentor. So all of our pledges at NACRO are around tackling those barriers. So the first one is very much about ensuring all the adults that we work with, whether it's adults in our housing provision, in the justice system, or out through our community learning centres, are able to take up their entitlement of basic skills, English and maths, digital skills, and ESOL where it's needed. And as Ken said, this is very much a stepping stone. This is about getting people up to those higher level technical qualifications that the country needs. And we really need to see the return of some fantastic embedded materials for those vocational areas. We created those 20 years ago. They're still on people's shelves, and we need to bring those back and really update and develop them. David Russell. In prisons, obviously governors have now got much more control over the education agenda in prisons, and we know we've got some big key quality providers in there, but it's been incredibly difficult in the justice system through lockdown. I'm sure you've seen it on the news. So there's a real need now to innovate and to look at how we can really obtain those skills with learners so that when they leave, they're able to take their place in society. There needs to be some innovation around that. And also through the new probation contracts, it can't just be left to the E2E providers. It's a whole system approach that's needed there. So we're going to use our weight at NACRO, working with a range of government departments to really look at those incentives and levers in the systems. What more can we do to make this count? How do we get specialist providers like ourselves into the prisons and out wider through the devolved authorities as well, so that we can really bring that innovation and niche support? And finally, on some of the current initiatives like Kickstart, for example, what more can we do to get that wraparound support? Could we see a Kickstart premium, for example, for ex-offenders so that we can help retain them and to keep those skills moving on? So those are my pledges, Sue. And just to say, I think this is fantastic that we've brought all of these people together today. And I'm sure between us, we will be able to lobby and get a really good approach going forward to help those 9 million and 17.3 million people that we are aiming at. Thank you.
Brilliant, Lisa, and thanks for that. And well done for everything that you're doing in NACRO. It's a really important organisation for the well-being of lots of individuals in this country. We're now going to move on to Stephen Evans at Learning and Work. Stephen, I hope you're there and you're going to put your camera on.
Yes, hopefully you can hear and see me. Yeah, okay, Sue. Excellent. Okay. So first of all, really well done, you and everybody involved in this today, and also for your work since the original Skills for Life strategy in this. It's so important. In the interest of things, so that at the Learning and Work Institute, we will continue to advocate and argue for the importance of this. So continue to make that case. In fact, I think it's 15 years ago I first argued for doubling the investment in this in the Leach review, which was kindly mentioned a moment ago. So I feel like I've got a job for life arguing for doubling money for Skills for Life, but hopefully we will make the case and get there. I think clearly on digital skills, I need to up my broadband connection to make my webcam work a bit better. So apologies for that. It's working brilliantly earlier. So apologies for the issues with the connection. So that's point one, is making the case and advocating with others. Point two is continuing to share and champion the stories of amazing learners like Hannah, who you heard earlier being interviewed by Alex, who's doing such great work on this at the Learning and Work Institute. So that includes through our annual Festival of Learning, and Hannah talked about the award that she got, and you can see loads of stories. You can see Hannah's story and loads of stories like Hannah's at festivaloflearning.org.uk. So if you want to be inspired, or you've had a tough day and you're wondering why you're still doing this, well, have a listen to some of those stories. But I think sharing those stories can be really inspirational in persuading the people that we need to persuade. So we'll continue to celebrate those amazing stories and share those amazing stories, which I think are so powerful. And then thirdly, we will continue to do all that we can to work with providers, work with practitioners to look at best practice, to share resources, to develop resources. You can see a bunch of free resources on our website, particularly around mapping ESOL provision, for example, and also some citizens curriculum resources about sort of toolkits for some of these sorts of things as well. So we'll continue to do all we can there to work with providers and practitioners to share and to develop new ideas and resources as well. And then just very lastly, I think why are we doing this, and why is this important? And I think we're sort of preaching to the converted on this call, obviously, but I think this is absolutely central to fairness, so that everybody gets a fair chance in life and is able to participate fully in society. It's essential to prosperity, and we want to get back to growth after the recession and the pandemic. So it's essential for employers and prosperity. But it's also, this is about the sort of society that we want to be, and building back better kind of is a phrase that's getting done to death slightly at the moment. But I think we have a chance, as we get through the worst of the effects of the pandemic, to think about the sort of society we want to be, and access to really good English, maths, digital, ESOL and other core skills and capability is really central to that for all of it. So thanks for organising. Apologies for the webcam issues that seem to have cropped up there, and thanks for inviting me on, Sue, and back to you.
Thanks, Stephen. Excellent. And thank again for all the work that Learning and Work does, and for again holding that legacy set of materials that everybody refers to. I think people are still emailing you about the basic skills curriculum, which I find quite interesting, and just not from England, from all over the world. I think you're still getting requests. So now we're going to move on to Deepa. Deepa Ganguly is here not just as the great college principal that she is, but also as one of our HOLIX board members. As I said, this isn't me in my HOLIX role. I've just been like one of the 30 volunteers who have brought this new document and strategy together. So over to you, Deepa. You're on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Now, so thank you for asking me, because, as somebody who started their adult education career by teaching Skills for Life and functional maths, I have seen firsthand the positive impact of the provision. I have seen students gain meaningful jobs, get promoted at work, or become more confident and employable. But what is often overlooked is also the pride that adults as parents and grandparents feel at being able to support their children for the first time with their schoolwork, or having a choice or a voice in everyday situations. And I know Hannah, she was brilliant, and then Susanna said about the impact of family learning as well. So therefore, as a Skills for Life practitioner and as the principal of Sutton College Adult Education, my personal commitment is to keep the Skills for Life agenda alive by continuing to offer a robust provision, including appropriate information, advice and guidance that meets the needs of the local community and helps in the recovery after the pandemic. And as a HOLIX board member, and this is on behalf of all our members who work with their local community to provide relevant and appropriate English, maths, ESOL and digital provision, we commit to keeping the Skills for Life agenda alive at the forefront of our mission and vision. And needless to say, as a sector, we do it really well, and we will continue to do so.
Brilliant, Deepa. Thank you. And thank you for keeping to the 3 minutes. I'm going to move on now to Simon. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Sue. How are you?
We're well, I think. It's been quite an interesting hour and a half, because I wasn't quite sure what people were actually going to say. It's been brilliant. So, so over to you, Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. The WEA's founder, Albert Mansbridge, talked about creating a toll-free highway for all adult learners, which would allow them to move through their learning journey. In today's complex world, that highway is probably more like Spaghetti Junction than Route 66. And it's certainly more digitally enabled now. It's becoming a smart motorway. So the WEA will continue to support all adult learners on their journey, in and out of the fast lane, changing lanes as they need to, and taking breaks where necessary. And then with particular reference to Skills for Life over the next 10 years, the government tell us that level 3 qualifications are the bridge to employment. We used to talk about ladders to that bridge, but that's too linear these days. We've heard that from Hannah. So it's not just level 1, level 2, level 3 and into a job. That's not the reality for adult learners. So at the WEA, we're going to support adults to build their own accessible rampway up to the bridge, a rampway that meanders back and forth and allows adult learners to move at the pace that is right for them. We'll be by their side for the full journey, even if they appear to be further away from the bridge than when they started. And personally, I'm committed to working with all individuals and organisations that share that ambition. So thanks, Sue.
Brilliant, Simon, and thank you for that. And I'm interested now that we've got, what did you say, a bridge, a ladder, what is it, a ramp, yeah, I got there.
Accessible ramp.
An accessible ramp, right, which I think is probably the right and good approach. And that brings us from David Hughes from AOC. And again, David has been with the Skills for Life agenda for the last 20 years as a funder, as an advocate, and now in his AOC's chief exec role. So David, over to you. I hope.
David is with us, but it says he's self-muted.
Hi, David. Can you unmute?
Yeah, I am unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can't see you.
Yeah, there you go. I've got the unenviable task of trying to bring it all together. I've got the daffodils for you. I couldn't bear to wear one after that rugby debacle yesterday, on Saturday, but there you go. Lots of things to say, that lots of it's already been said before. For me, Skills for Life has always been as much a moral issue as an economic issue. It's about how people can become citizens and participate in life as much as in work, and we mustn't forget that. I've been spending a lot of time in the last 6 months trying to remind Vice Chancellors that there's a massive snobbery about qualifications, and I think the life transforming nature of doing literacy, numeracy, family learning, ESOL is just as massive as a degree or even a postgraduate degree. And we must not forget that the value of basic skills, skills for life, are absolutely essential for so many people and so many millions of adults, and we'll carry on doing that. The one specific thing I wanted to, and we'll carry on being advocates for that, Sue, we're not going to stop working with colleges, helping them get their students to achieve good literacy, numeracy, digital skills, and those other wider kind of competencies that are so important. But the one thing I really wanted to focus on is that massively singular focus on GCSE up to the age of 16, which I think is part of the problem we have. Because every year, because it's a norm reference qualification, we get about a third of the cohort of young people who are deemed to have failed in their English and maths. They then have to do resits, which is damaging. They feel like they've failed. Even when they get the resit at grade 4, so-called good pass, the resit pass rate for grade 4 in maths last November was 15%. So they're not competent actually in maths. They don't have the skills that are going to be equipping them for life in numeracy or in English. And that really worries me. So our commitment to do as much as we can to support the whole agenda, but specifically and particularly to keep challenging that GCSE focus, because I think Nick Gibbs got it wrong. And the sooner he's not schools minister, the sooner we'll be able to put that right. Thanks.
David, you're absolutely right, because one of the big disappointments for the last 20 years is that we've not stopped the flow. We've got so many young people leave school every year at 16 with poor literacy and numeracy skills. And in a way, that's where the government needs to put its attention. Yes, with the legacy adult group, but also now with young people, we've got to break in there. So thanks, and thanks for reminding us of that. Brilliant, thank you. So we managed to complete this, everybody, in the time, and well done for all our speakers. Well done to the 30-odd 8 people who actually wrote this document. It is, like I said, a really good read. And in it, we've got 15 recommendations. Like I said, not just recommendations for government, but also recommendations for ourselves. And I'd just like to thank everybody. I like Charlie McKenna for being behind the scenes and doing all the work, for Ruth Silver and the Further Education Leadership Trust of the Trust for Leadership that's been with us all the way on this, and for the TES for being our media partner. But I want to leave you, this is my final word, I'm going to leave you with Jay Blade, who was very keen to do a piece to camera when he realised that that we were asking for people to commit. And for all those who've actually put their commitments onto Twitter, onto the hashtag SFL21 to 31, thank you. You've done a sterling job this morning. And here, like I said, Jake is now going to be, I'm now going to give Jake the last words. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for your work for English and Maths, Numeracy, Digital and ESOL. Bye.
Now, most of you may recognize me, and hopefully you do. So what I'm saying should make perfect sense. Every job, every TV thing that I do is all based on skills. It's based on people coming together and knowing that you can learn from someone, and you can actually learn something and then teach someone else about that. And it is so beautiful when you're able to learn a skill and then go forward with that skill, because the skill allows you to develop not only yourself, but develop the people behind you, your family, your friends, and then you can influence other people. And the other thing, which is even better than all of that, is you can influence your community, and you're influencing people that are not here yet. So I know you guys are in the audience, and some of you have committed to participating in the campaign that's going ahead. I would urge you to make sure that you do, because if you look at what I'm doing, and everybody else behind me, we are all committed to skills and all about developing people, whether it's maths, English, whatever it is. We have to make sure that we bring this society back to the way it was. And the only way we're going to do that is by coming together and forming something which says we are going to do it. Don't tell me you're not going to do it. Make sure you do it. Take care.